Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere.
Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Pursuit podcast. I'm your host, Calvin Lymper. I'm the author, founder, and creator of the Pursuit website, one-man newspaper sharing my experience in sports, sharing my thoughts and opinions, and also relaying the news of sports. So I'm really excited to debut this project. This is my passion project, affiliate side of my website. And so, we're going to cover, NBA basketball, NFL football, NHL hockey, some college football, some college basketball as well. As I'm from the Philly area, as you can see, I'm repping the Flyers today. I'll be sharing my thoughts on Philly sports, all four of them, as I'm a Clemson student, Clemson University freshman. I'll be sharing my thoughts on not only just Clemson football, but also Clemson basketball, Clemson baseball. So I'm very excited to share my thoughts on all of that. I'd like to start out our podcast, the premiere podcast, with the Roundball Rock section. This will be my discussion into the NBA, college basketball, just basketball in general. I'll go into the Philadelphia side of things later on. Start out, college basketball is back. It's very exciting. Koa Pete has a 30 ball, to begin the season against the reigning champion Florida Gators. And this is just a matchup that, everyone was waiting for it. Everyone was waiting for college basketball to start out with this. And not only that, just the 30 ball on a team that should be winning that first matchup, but also you saw D2 team Hawaii Pacific taking down Boise State. I mean, just absolutely a stunner. It's just glimpses of what we're going to see in March. Obviously, we're not going to see Hawaii Pacific in an NCAA tournament. But, to see that Boise State team lose against what should have been an easy opponent, I saw comments saying that Hawaii Pacific was playing some beautiful offense. I'll have to look back at those highlights, but just overall magnificent glimpse of what we're going to see in this season, just the true power of college basketball there. So very exciting stuff to begin the college basketball season. Start our NBA discussion, obviously, as if we're a few games into the season. Today is November 6th, 2025, as I'm recording this, but last night we saw some things. I was watching the Pelicans-Mavericks game after a long day of work and a long day of homework and classes. And I saw, I was waiting for the Spurs-Lakers game later on. Obviously, I've been a big fan of Wembanyama. I think he's one of the 5 MVP candidates to start out the year. And he just looks absolutely unreal. The Spurs had their first ever 5-0 start in their franchise. And that's a franchise that's had Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, David Robinson, one of my favorite players personally, David Robinson, the Admiral. The Wembanyama is just leading this team. They're going to have De'Aaron Fox come off of injury. This is just a special team full of young players, some veteran presence in the middle of it. But, Wembanyama just looks like an NBA 2K My player come to life. Shout out to Thinking Basketball on YouTube. He made a video talking about Wembanyama and talking about just the way he plays being just absolutely unreal. Gets the ball, and when he goes to drive in, he just scrapes the floor with the ball, comes up, goes in for the layup, and it's just absolutely unreal. It's something that you would see in dreams. But as I was waiting for that game to start out, I was watching a little bit of some tape from the Pelicans-Mavericks game. Big fan of watching the hyped up prospects in each of the sports. So I saw Cooper Flagg playing. I know he hasn't had the best. Year so far. He's been a little shaky. He's just playing like a normal rookie would. I think he's been putting up 13 points per game, 14 points per game. I watched that Pelicans game last night, and you see this Pelicans team come from behind. They're coming up from behind record-wise, but they're absolutely in the front that entire time. Cooper Flagg can't stop him. No one on that Mavericks team can stop him. But really, 2-6. Both teams are 2-6, but I just don't think anyone can save the Pelicans. I don't think anyone can save the Pelicans. They sent an unprotected first-round pick to the Atlanta Hawks. That pick might be a first overall pick. That might be a top 3, and it's unprotected, and the Hawks are going to get another top 3 pick. The Hawks are going to get another top 3 pick upcoming, and it's just not good front office moves. But I was watching that game, and I saw, my family's from big, long lineage of Villanova alumni. And, I saw Sadiq Bey coming out of the shadows. He's been all around the league by now. He puts up 22 points, leads the way for that Pelicans team. He's just absolutely anywhere on the court that he's shooting, he's making that ball. He's making that shot. He made some tough shots. Puts 22 points. I think he even had 9 rebounds. Just almost a double-double. Just unbelievable from the journeyman. One of my favorite players personally. I like to watch him a lot just because he was from Villanova. And no, it's just a lot of fun watching that Pelicans team last night against that Mavericks team. And the Mavericks, Cooper Flagg missed a wide open floater at the very end of that game to lose, and it's just not what you want to see from this Mavericks team. That they're poised to make a deep playoff run. They have Kyrie waiting in the wings. They have Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg. They got him somehow in the lottery. They even have Najee Marshall. They have Max Christie, Daniel Gafford. These are all guys that should be a deeper team. This should be a deeper playoff team that you should be scared to see when it comes to the playoffs. But will it even make it? I don't know. It all depends on if AD can stay healthy and if Flagg can wake up a little bit. Regarding that Rookie of the Year race, talking about Cooper Flagg, talking about those younger guys, being able to watch those younger guys, there's something about VJ Edgecombe. Obviously, I'm going to talk about him more in the Philadelphia section of the podcast later on, but VJ Edgecombe is just running away with the Rookie of the Year race right now, but obviously I'll get more into him later on. I know he had a subpar performance against the Cavaliers just last night, but VJ Edgecombe is just absolutely the front runner in this race. I don't think it could take any performance from any of those players to any of those top guys, but Jeremiah Fears on the Pelicans has had a great season so far. Cedric Harris on the Grizzlies has had a great season so far. Both those guys look like real contributors, but you just see a star in VJ Edgecombe. I think he's the top of the rookie class right now. And even Ace Bailey, the guy that the Sixers were supposed to draft over him, you see him just struggling. You even see Dylan Harper coming off for the San Antonio Spurs, and he looks like a contributor so far. He's making his waves. He's doing good. I think he definitely, he's injured now. That's definitely going to take a big hit to what is supposed to be, him versus Edgecombe for that Rookie of the Year spot. I mean, unless Flagg begins to play off the ball a little more, they don't try to put as much pressure on him, then things might change there. But right now, it's VJ Edgecombe or bust, in my opinion. And I was looking at some action from last night, and I saw, Sacramento Kings, Russell Westbrook, another triple-double, 26 points against the Warriors. I hurt Warriors, obviously, but he's just coming off a 22-point game. I think it's crazy that, him, Chris Paul, both veterans that have proved themselves to be, capable of making deep playoff runs, capable of being good presences on this team. I mean, you saw Wizards, Russell Westbrook was probably the last of his prime, per se, but Russell Westbrook's still getting it done, still talking about, I saw a quote from him the other day saying that, humbly speaking, I think that I'm the best rebounding guard. He's set the record for most rebounds by a guard. And I think you can definitely make that take, talking about Russell Westbrook being, obviously, there's always the conversation about that he stat pads, but he's an absolute stud. He will continue to be an absolute stud. And I think he's putting some life into this Sacramento Kings team that just desperately needs it. And, it's just, I'm a big Russ fan as well. I know I'm going to say I'm a fan of a lot of different players, but Russ is still doing his thing. Russ is absolutely still doing his thing for this Kings team. And I don't think he's going to be out of the league yet. I think he's still got another year after this. I think he'll continue to make that Kings team even better. Just overall, I think that there's definitely a lot of potential with him into the future. I think that he's nowhere near done. Talking about just individual players, just as the season's starting up, I would like to shout out 2 players that have been on my mind, been on my personal radar as this season begins up. So, and those 2 players, both of them are second-year players. There's always the sophomore slump. There's always a second-year leap. These are 2 guys that had decent rookie years, but there's just potential for better. So that those 2 guys will be Alex Sarr of the Washington Wizards and Ron Holland II of the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, Alex Sarr, he dropped 30 points against my Sixers maybe a week or 2 ago. And he's developing into one of those better young two-way players. Center, obviously, but 22.5 points per game per 36. and he's in the 80th percentile for creation. Obviously, he's getting his players open shots. He's getting his teammates open shots. And he's the 95th percentile for block percentage, like the percentage that the shot from opponents is going to be blocked by him. So he definitely is a presence on both sides of the ball, being a good teammate, being a good contributor for this Wizards team, the young Wizards team, the young blossoming team that, they need some firepower, but they're going to have a bad record this year, but they have Middleton coming off. No Jordan Poole anymore, unfortunately. That wasn't the most fun player to watch for that Wizards team, but Alex Sarr, you're going to hear his name, obviously. Rasasher from the Atlanta Hawks, drafted first overall before him. But Alex Sarr was one of those guys that you just kept seeing that he was the number one overall pick the entire year. You kept seeing that he was the number one overall pick the entire year, but and he's finally putting up those numbers. This is a guy that you really are seeing develop without a lot of press. Honestly, I think that we need more press on Alexander Sarr. But going into my second player, I would like to shout out, Ron Holland II. He's so close to developing that second-year leap. And, there's still work to be done, obviously. He's still hesitant with his jump shot. He's still hesitant with taking those kind of shots. But his three-point attempt rate is going up from last year to this year. He's got 18.2 points per game per 36. He's in the 82nd percentile of defensive versatility. Now, this Pistons team is one that you want to root for. The team that had, 2 years ago, they had the worst losing streak in NBA history. Cade Cunningham was just bringing this team on his back to wherever they go. They've made the playoffs last year. They had a solid run, but, this is a team that's just full of young talent. Jalen Duren's out there. And another shout out to Usar Thompson. If I had a third spot to make on this list of players to watch, I would give it to him. I know, talking about just two Eastern Conference teams. No, we talk about 82nd percentile defensive versatility for Holland. We talk about 82nd percentile in defensive versatility from Ron Holland. Then we got to talk about, the 92nd percentile for Usar Thompson defensive versatility. 91st in Crafted NBA's defensive plus minus, and just Usar Thompson's a guy. I don't know if you want to give him the ball on offense, but you definitely want him out there in late game situations to be your defensive anchor. Talking about Ron Holland, Usar Thompson, I'm a big fan of, that second avenue to the NBA outside of college, Talking about, the G League Ignite, Ron Holland II, Overtime Elite, the Thompson twins. I'm a big fan of Amen Thompson as well. And, those two avenues are just so unique. The pre-NIL era before it really took off, but, those are two players that really are making their presence known as they begin to develop, as they begin to continue on in their career. So two players to watch out for the first edition of the Pursuit podcast would be Alex Sarr and Ron Holland II, and an honorable mention to Usar Thompson just doing his thing on defense there for the Pistons. Shifting gears a little bit, I would like to talk about NFL football. It's November, the end of fall. We're going into those winter months. The playoff race is beginning to open up. And obviously, I want to start out talking about the AFC. If you saw this AFC standings before the season began, Colts 7-2, Patriots 7-2, Broncos 7-2. That's your top three teams right there. And then obviously the Steelers 5-4 with that final conference spot. You just you would be in absolute disbelief. The Colts, number one offense. Where did that come from? Obviously, Jonathan Taylor's talented, but did you really expect this out of Daniel Jones right here? But it's not going to be over yet. Trade deadline moves. They have Sauce Gardner now. Looking back in it, in the logistics of the whole trade, it's a smart trade for both teams, both the Jets and the Colts. And you see, Quinnen Williams get sent to the Cowboys, and Sauce and Charvarius Ward, when Charvarius Ward comes back, that's going to be a rough secondary to play against those Indianapolis Colts. And that's a move that very well might lead to a win in the playoffs. But the Colts is just one of those teams that you're just really curious to see what they do in the playoffs coming up. And they're still hot. They're still doing good. They still have decent wins. They're still battling against players, but just absolutely just a surprise. You got Indiana Daniel Jones out there leading the charge for the Colts, and he is doing some magic out there with Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's Offensive Player of the Year candidate, maybe even MVP candidate, honestly. I like the idea of giving those position players MVP nod. I think Saquon Barkley should have been MVP last year. But, yeah, we got to shift gears, talk about that second place team, the Patriots. Buffalo Bills should have been the number one team in the AFC this year, but you got the Patriots doing some magic here. Drake May putting up MVP numbers out of nowhere. Obviously, he was a good quarterback last year, but they are just putting up good numbers. They have some solid defense going here, but the biggest question for this Patriots is just, are the running backs going to wake up? Trayvon Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson, just not doing a lot for your production there. And you really have to wonder, the lack of moves at the trade deadline, is this Patriots team going to make a deep run this year? I don't know if they will. I don't think they will, just because they didn't make any moves. They didn't try to bolster anything. They didn't try to change up the offense a little bit. Drake May, I don't know if he can lead this team all on its own. It's given me a lot of flashbacks to that first breakout year by Mac Jones and this Patriots team. We've seen this story before. We've seen a young quarterback that looked like a Pro Bowler, looked like maybe not MVP candidate with Mac Jones, but no, this is just the same old story for the Patriots in the post-Tom Brady era. But I'm excited to see what happens in those playoffs. And obviously, the Broncos, they just need to find their offensive identity. But the fact that they're 7-2, they have a win over my Eagles, just shows, they have an amazing, consistent defense. You go to the other side, you have Bo Nix as the quarterback. I don't know where the offensive identity is. I don't know what their game plan is each time. I know it can keep them unpredictable to opposing defenses, but you just need to wonder, what's going on with that Broncos team? Can they build off on their 7-2 record? Are they going to fall off from here on out? It's really just a question. And you go a little bit deeper into the AFC standings. You got the 7th seed right now, Jaguars. They're I saw an ESPN article, 54% to make the playoffs right now. They just got Jacoby Myers coming in for their wide receiver room. And this is a team that they dropped the ball. Trevor Lawrence could be having an amazing year. He had an amazing, I wrote an article for the Tiger, amazing comeback win against the Chiefs. He had that last-second rush touchdown. But this is a team that just needs to find some consistency, just like I was talking about the Broncos. Brian Thomas Jr., he's been just absolutely absent. Obviously you have Travis Hunter playing his two-way game. You want to see him succeed, but I just don't know what entails for this Jaguars team. But they just got Jacoby Myers at the deadline. And Jacoby Myers is the guy that you throw him the ball and it's going his way. He's open. He's catching that. This is a guy that's allergic to drops. And that's something that this Jaguars team definitely needs coming into this little home stretch of their schedule. I think that people overlook this trade a lot. I don't think that Jacoby Myers is going to be the thing that brings them to a Super Bowl contender, obviously. But I think it will be something that will benefit them heavily when it comes to getting into the playoffs, finally making that final push to get into the playoffs. They need to find their rush defense is pretty solid, but they just need that extra piece on offense. And I don't know if Myers himself would be the one that brings them over the edge, like I said, but I think there's definitely potential for this Jaguars team. And shifting over to the NFC side, Panthers, Carolina Panthers, 5-4. Did you expect this? I didn't expect this. They started the season terribly, just like they did last year. Bryce Young, if he can just continually avoid the pressure, I think he'll become one of the better quarterbacks. Rico Dowdle, starting to shine out of nowhere. He's only played a few games. He's already third on rushing yards. But and the defense, they got some tough matchups against the NFC coming up. But if they can keep holding their own, keep holding strong, we might see, maybe just sub 500, maybe just above 500, maybe 9-8, 8-9 Panthers team, and that's definitely a start. But that's definitely a start for the Panthers coming back because they have wins over the Packers, the Cowboys, the Falcons. They definitely are battle tested. I know the Cowboys are having a down year, but they're definitely battle-tested, and I think that people should be a little higher on the Panthers. Again, not playoff contenders, not Super Bowl contenders, but give Bryce Young his flowers. Give that Panthers team their flowers. I don't think this is a team that you're going to laugh at anymore. This is a team that you're going to see their ticket sales increase. I hope the best. I hope the best for them. I've been rooting for Bryce Young just like I've been rooting for Caleb Williams. Those are guys that have high expectations. Didn't play the best in their first year, but they're going to be on the rise. They're definitely going to be on the rise. Talking about contenders in the NFC. Obviously, you got the Eat My Eagles. I'll talk about them later, but the Rams might as well be the best team in the NFL, whole NFL. Kyron Williams balling out. Matthew Stafford is still one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He's ever since the Lions, ever since that Super Bowl year, the Rams have always been a team to watch out for. They make the playoffs even when they shouldn't be. But, just next to them in the NFC West, you have the 49ers still doing their things with Mac Jones. I think Brock Purdy's going to come back, but you can make a case for Mac Jones being that guy now. And, Christian McCaffrey's doing his thing, obviously. But the Seattle Seahawks, Sam Darnold is legit. He was not a one-year wonder. You have JSN, Offensive Player of the Year candidate. And now you have Rashid Shaheed coming into that stacked wide receiver room. You have Cooper Kupp on the slot. I don't know. I think if Kenneth Walker and the running back room can, just like the Patriots, if that running back room can find their identity and they can begin to score, they can begin to get a set number of yards and some consistency, this Seahawks team is legit. I think they're legit. That's a team I don't want to see in the playoffs. If I'm the Eagles, if I'm the Rams, I don't want to see the Seahawks. I don't want to see Sam Darnold in the playoffs. He's a guy that, he's battle tested now. He's proven that he can do it in Minnesota. He's proven that he can do it in Seattle now. And that's just absolutely a scary thought. But watch out for the Seahawks. Team to watch out for, the Seattle Seahawks. Now I'd like to talk about probably the most underrated sport in the North American Big Four right now. It has to be NHL hockey. Got a lot of thoughts coming into got a lot of thoughts talking about, NHL hockey right now. Obviously, my Flyers are doing better than expected, and I'll talk about that later on. I'm repping them right now. But, Jack Eichel, 19 points. Mark Schieffel, 20 points. Those are the guys you're going to see to lead the Hart Trophy race. But let's talk about McDavid a little bit. Obviously, I don't know what there is to talk about, the Oilers, truly, but McDavid's a guy who's had a slow start this year. He's had a slow start by normal NHL player standards. And he's still atop of the league with 21 points. Obviously, Celebrini's with him now. But, and you got Leon Draisaitl still doing his thing, still one of the best players in the league with 10 goals. He's tied for best in the league when it comes to goals. But Oilers just dropped into 6-5-4. They played against the Stars. They lost a shootout, but, you really just got to wonder what's going on. They led in that first quarter. They have a below 500 record when they lead out of that first quarter. And it's just, you just got to wonder why. What's happening with this Oilers team? Obviously, they lost the past two Stanley Cups. They lost the last two Stanley Cups. They had amazing offense, decent defense, and just subpar goaltending. Stuart Skinner's out there, but I don't know what the ceiling is on this Oilers team. Obviously, McDavid and Draisaitl are still doing their things, but is this duo enough? Do they have the team around them to get things done? I'm not sure. I really root for McDavid's my favorite NHL player. I really root for him in all scenarios, but there was always a conversation of where he was going to go in free agency, what he should do after this year, and he re-signed with the Oilers, but you just got to wonder. I hear that. You look at his film. He looks bored out there. He's scoring goals. He doesn't care. He's given assists. He's gotten a lot of assists this year so far. He doesn't care. This is not what you want to see from Connor McDavid. You want to see him, building that chemistry for the team. But if the Oilers are just not going to win despite those two players being, the best in the NHL, 1 and 2, you just have to wonder what the goal of the Oilers are here. But maybe they can make it back. They always seem to find a way. But that ring is really missing from Draisaitl and McDavid's duo ship right there. But, Cale Makar. You want to talk about the third guy in that Hart Trophy race, you got to talk about Cale Makar. He has the potential to be the first defenseman. I mean, obviously, it's still early in the season, but he has the potential to be the first defenseman since 2000 to even be a finalist for the award. I saw an ESPN article saying that, Makar is the Norris Trophy front runner. It's not even close, just like Edgecombe with the Rookie of the Year. He just has, they described him as Usain Bolt. running in that race for the Norris, but he has a rocket on his back, just powering him up, fueling him up. I don't know. Sorry, Makar is one of the, best players in the NHL right now. And I think absolutely that he can be the best defenseman. He has 18 points on the season right now. He's still leading the way. He still scores. He's still a big shot blocker. I think that Cale Makar is a name to watch out for when it comes to the Hart. He's going to get a third Norris Trophy, I think, this year, unless there's any other guys stepping up to the ring there. But, I think that we're seeing a runaway race there. Shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about Ovechkin. Obviously, 900 goals. The first in NHL history to reach 900 goals. You saw him break Gretzky's record last year. And he did a little penguin dive onto the ice, but you got to feel happy for Ovechkin. He finally got his 900 in a blowout win against the Blues. His backhand goal was a 2-1 lead, and then you just see the Capitals just call themselves a night. 6-1 win over the Blues, and just absolutely incredible. Another thing I noticed was, the Sharks are on a roll. 5-2-1 the last 8 games. And, this is the team that, they have Celebrini. He has 21 points. He's leading the team and leading the league with McDavid in terms of scoring. And, I saw this article from San Jose. They were talking about how this team very well could have 9 wins, 8 wins. They fought hard against the Knights, Ducks, and the Kings. Ducks are on a roll. They're maybe the best team in the West right now. They have Cutter Gauthier. He had a hat trick the other day, but they're on a roll. The Sharks, this is not a team that you turn your back on yet. Celebrini, the first teenager to 20 points since 2007. That's when Crosby did it. Just San Jose is not a team that you want to count out yet. Obviously, they haven't had the best results in the past few years. They were the first overall pick, got Celebrini, but, there's definitely a conversation that San Jose is not out of it yet. Last topic of the day when it comes to hockey, I would like to talk about Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard is a guy, I was talking about Wembanyama earlier. I was talking about Alex Sarr. Those guys that are supposed to be generational prospects, and you just have to root for them. You just have to hope they live up to the expectations. I don't like to hate watch when it comes to prospects. Connor Bedard comes into his hometown, Vancouver. Last year, had a shaky game. Last year, he was at the height of his sophomore slump with Chicago, but he came back to Vancouver just last night. 2 points, 13 shots, and 8 scoring chances. And this is a guy that is just absolutely leading his team, obviously, and that led a lot for that 5-2 win over the Canucks. But there has to be a conversation about Bedard. People talk about him versus Celebrini. People talk about how maybe he's not the generational prospect that we rooted for him to be. Maybe we hyped him up too much. Maybe the pressure got to him. Let's hear the stats, though. His first 161 games. Let's hear, the comparison. Bedard has 51 goals and 142 points in his first 161 games. Talk about another Blackhawks legend, Patrick Kane. 46 goals, 141 points in his first 161 games. Put into a little more perspective, I've heard just from different social media, Reddit, I've heard that, Bedard's first few years compared to Nathan MacKinnon's first few years. Nathan MacKinnon, with McDavid, with Draisaitl as one of the best players in the league right now, with Makar. You compare those first 3 years. Obviously, Bedard's production right now, 146 points in 164 games. That's 0.89 points per game. And then you have Nathan MacKinnon, his first 3 years, 153 points in 218 games. That's 0.7 points per game. I think the parallels are there. I think, Bedard, MacKinnon, both Calder winners, both stars in their rookie year, both had a really, really bad sophomore slump, but they're going to catch up in this third year. I think the underlying message here is to be patient with Connor Bedard. Be patient because, we've seen stars that are at this elite level, just like MacKinnon, have these bad sophomore slumps. We've seen it before, and it's nothing to laugh over. It's nothing to, scoff about. I think that we are seeing, the rise of Connor Bedard again, the rise of just the Blackhawks in general, and that's going to be a team that you want to watch game to game. You want to box score watch him. I think Bedard is really finding his own as an NHL player. Now, for everyone who is from the Philly area, and I'm from South Jersey myself, but you've seen the Philadelphia in the corner of the video the whole time. Let's talk about these Philadelphia Flyers to start out the Phanatic segment. Trevor Zegras, just the man in the arena. Mr. Philly himself right now. I think he's the most exciting player to watch in Philadelphia right now. Obviously, you got Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, but you got to give some credit to these Flyers, man. He's absolutely stepping up. 15 points. Where TK and Mitchkov have fallen off a little bit this year, production-wise, but the Flyers are 7-2-1 when Zegras reports a point. In fact, he's a point in 8 of 9 power play goals this year. I mean, and obviously, just besides him, you got Owen Tippett started out the year pretty well. Bobby Brink just had 2 goals. That crazy win over the Habs, that 5-4 shootout goal when, they go up 3-0 goals. They're down 4-3 all of a sudden. It's at the end of the third. And then you have Grebenkin. Forecheck, backcheck, paycheck. The man himself finally scored a goal. That was an exciting game to watch. And they win a shootout, and I saw some stats talking about how Zegras is, you put him in a shootout, you're going to win that game. So, Trevor Zegras is a guy that I was excited for. I liked him in Anaheim, obviously. Him and Cutter being together in there made me pretty mad, but Zegras is a Philadelphia Flyer. He's a Broad Street bully, and he's doing his thing. And even Vladar and Ersan are doing their things this year. Ersan's been a little quiet this year. The numbers aren't really showing his potential, but Vladar's doing well. Vladar has some pretty good percentages, and I think the goal scoring is back. But speaking about Owen Tippett earlier, his production has fallen off. He had a really exciting, really electric beginning to that year, but he's in too many trade talks now. Him and TK are both in trade talks, and there just might be some younger talent coming into Philadelphia in the next few weeks, next few months. If you're a Flyers fan, I would definitely stay tuned to see if any trades occur out of those rumors. Shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about basketball. The Philadelphia 76ers starting out their year 5-3. They had that first 5 games. They looked absolutely incredible. VJ Edgecombe put up the most points by a rookie debut for the Sixers. One of them, I think, only second in most points by a rookie in their debut, next to Wilt Chamberlain of all guys, the legend Wilt Chamberlain, the guy who scored 100 points. The generator is just running away with this Rookie of the Year race. But last 2 games, you don't really see his production kind of go back to how it should be. The rookie, inexperienced, not the most productive. He had 7 points last night, and obviously we were shorthanded against the Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell puts up 46, absolute masterclass, above 70% field goal percentage. There's just nothing really you can do to stop that. But, I got to hand it to them. The Sixers just keep fighting, man. Obviously, they had a really bad collapse over the Chicago Bulls, and that was an absolute travesty. The team is just not playing well in general. Joel Embiid has 20 points in limited minutes, but and McCain was back, but he did nothing. But there's just a lot of good in this Sixers team, and I think that despite the fact that we just dropped 2 games, 2 frustrating losses, we just did not look connected. There's a lot of guys to watch out for. Quinn Grimes is back. He's still hitting good shots. Obviously, he missed that shot, the game winner against the Bulls the other day, but Embiid's still putting up 20 with ease and not really using free throws. You talk about Shea using free throws to get those 31 points per game, but Embiid's coming back, and he's doing it the right way. Obviously, that Bulls game, you did not want to see him take a step back 3 with 4 seconds left in the shot clock. Could have been a little more of a play developed there, but VJ Edgecombe looks amazing. Kelly Oubre is an X factor. Him and Adem Bona are X factors. Even Drummond's playing well. Bona and Drummond are good backup centers for this team. Obviously, maybe they didn't show it in the Cavaliers Bulls games, but Bona's a defensive prowess, and he's he stepped up to the plate when Embiid's out, and so that's something you want to see. But Tyrese Maxey, let's have a conversation about him. Over 30 points per game. He put up 27 in what was supposed to be a fluke. Not a fluke. He put up 27 in what was supposed to be one of the disappointing performances by Maxey there. This is a guy that, he could have some better defense, but what I see? I see prime Houston James Harden. Maybe not prime, but those first few years when he was there, traded from the Thunder, that's what I see out of Tyrese Maxey right now. He's just an absolute stud. He's scoring crazy shots. That first game, the double step back, drained a 3, a swish. It's just James Harden all over again. I made a comparison to one of my buddies the other day. VJ Edgecombe playing like rookie year LeBron James. I don't know if that's completely true. That might be an exaggeration, but Maxey, I really think that next year he's going to be scoring 40 per game. I think that we're going to see an MVP year out of Maxey next year. And we might even see it this year, honestly. Look at Basketball Reference's MVP tracker. Obviously, number 1, number 2, number 3, you got, Giannis Antetokounmpo having a sneaky good year. No one's really talking about him. Nikola Jokic still putting up triple-doubles every game. He's going to surpass Russ with ease this year. And then, Shea is still up there doing his thing. The Thunder just dropped a game to the Blazers, but they're still the best team in the league by far. Then you have Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey was 4th in ranking. And he was above Victor Wembanyama, the guy who was supposed to be the MVP frontrunner after those first few games. Tyrese Maxey is just absolutely showing out this year, and he's just on fire. He's doing his thing, and you got to be, excited if you're a Sixers fan. This is a team that's finding their identity without Joel Embiid playing all the time. Paul George is off the bench. Who knows what his role is going to be when he comes back? But this is a team that you just are excited for. They took a few bad losses, and people are already pessimistic again. But as a Sixers fan, I know it's hard, but just be optimistic. We have a really good Sixers team coming in this year, and Edgecombe looks like a beast. McCain's not even back to 100% yet. We're still missing Paul George, and I know the conversation about Paul George, we should trade Paul George. I was a fan of Paul George before. I don't know if I like him on the Sixers, but he's still a great player for us, and I think that, him coming off the bench, him being maybe even a 6th man or that power forward spot in the starting lineup, we're going to see some production out of him. Hopefully he can at least be a good defender for us and add some defense to the mix. And as we're moving along with this Phanatic segment, I would like to talk a little bit about the Phillies. I haven't really talked baseball at all in the podcast so far, but, Phillies are coming off a very, very, very disappointing and rough year. They just absolutely trailblazed in the regular season, but, Schwarber, Ranger, Romano, Real Muto, Bader, and Kepler are all going to be free agents this year, and that's just, you do not want to see that. Schwarber, I think, might be gone. He was an NL MVP candidate. He still might win it. I think he should be the finalist. He should be the one that wins it this year. I know Ohtani had an amazing year, and the Dodgers won the World Series, and they shut us down, but Schwarber's probably going to be gone for a lot of money. Real Muto might even be gone. And so I think all Phillies fans can look at, especially because we're going to bring back Topper, we're going to bring back that same coaching core that we have. We got to look at some youth. We got to look up at the replacements, man. We got to go big in free agency again. Adley Rutschman is a name that I keep seeing pop up for what we should do for catcher. God forbid that Real Muto ends up walking the BCIB. Rutschman, just from that Baltimore Orioles team, he was a generational talent that he was there. Obviously, 1.9 WAR this year, 637 OPS. He used to be more valuable, but he's still a great switch hitter. I think that he would work in this Philadelphia offense, but that's obviously if 35-year-old Real Muto ends up walking for a lot of money. But I would love to have Real Muto back first and foremost, but I think Adley Rutschman is a guy that we should pursue in a trade. God forbid if Real Muto walks. Now, names for the infield, I keep seeing Pete Alonso. I don't know how many Philly fans want Pete Alonso on the Philadelphia lineup, just considering he's a division rival, considering that, he's just, it's a Mets guy. You don't want the Mets on the Phillies, but he's a guy with 144 OPS plus, 38 home runs last year, 3.4 WAR. He's still an amazing player, and he would work on this Philly team. People, question the Philly grit. They question if he has that Philly grit in him, but I think Pete Alonso would be a good Philly. But if we're not going to go Alonso, we have to go Josh Naylor, the guy from Seattle. He played on 2 teams last year, but 3.1 WAR, 816 OPS, 128 OPS plus. Absolute stud in Josh Naylor. I think if we need to go after someone this year, it has to be him. I would love Adley Rutschman. I would love Alonso, but if you want to go someone who's reliable, a guy that will be valuable. He's hard to replace. That's going to be Josh Naylor. And that's someone that's outside of the division, someone that you're not going to have hated before. But, yeah, I think that those 3 guys are the guys that the Phillies should go for this offseason. But I even saw an article talking about, what the goal is for next year. Obviously, Bohm might be moved. They probably want to take some pressure off Bryce Harper, take some pressure off the outfield. So I think, honestly, you bring up, Painter's been in the top prospects for a while. You bring him up. You bring up Crawford. You bring up Aiden Miller at third base if Alec Bohm is gone. And I think you have a young Phillies team combined with some veteran presence. Obviously, if you get Josh Naylor, Pete Alonso, in that lineup. Add on to the bats, especially if Schwarber and Real Muto are gone. You have Rutschman in the infield. I think that's probably the dream offseason for these Phillies. And obviously, we talked about football earlier, but I tried to keep it off the Eagles, but we got to talk Eagles now. Pretty decent trade deadline for these Eagles. Howie Roseman's just doing his thing. The team had a huge bye week. They somehow won a game despite being on bye. Packers lost, the Lions lost. Cowboys, Commanders both got steamrolled. I mean, this is just an absolute win when it comes to Philadelphia sports for the Eagles. And I think, honestly, this is their division to lose. Unless we see a historical collapse like 2023, there was conversations about this being a repeat of 2023. The Super Bowl hangover year, the production isn't there, but Jalen Hurts still looks solid. He's been just getting better and better each game. I think that Broncos loss really woke us up a lot, but the Giants and Broncos loss back-to-back really woke us up a lot, but we've just looked so much better coming out of those losses. And, now we're still holding on to top in the NFC. And again, you see the Commanders, their season's done for. Jaden Daniels is hurt. They kept him in way too long. The Seahawks steamrolled them, absolutely steamrolled them. The Commanders team is done. Cowboys just look way too inconsistent. The Giants just lost Scatterbo in their game against us. I don't think the Giants are going to go far anyway, even if they had Scatterbo. So this is really our division to lose. I think we're going to see the first back-to-back NFC East champion for the first time in many, many years. And I know I gotta knock on wood there because, me saying that we're going to lose 7 in a row and it's just going to go wrong, just knowing these Eagles, anything can happen. But, we really bolstered up the team good this year at the trade deadline. We got Jalen Phillips, that was probably the biggest name in that trade deadline for us, 66.5 PFF grade. He's going to bolster that edge rusher line. And then you even got Jair Alexander, a big name. That would have been the biggest trade in maybe 4 years ago. Just in Baltimore, he really did not have a role. It's really a mystery as to what his output is going to be for us, what his production is going to be for us. But that's going to be exciting to watch, him get some reps with us. And then, Michael Carter II, obviously 2022, 2023, you want him to return to those numbers, 73.5 PFF grade, 80 PFF grade in 2023. You want him to return those numbers, but I think that even if he doesn't, this is just an overall win for our secondary, overall win for our defense. And I think that, even on the offensive side, you have Tank Bigsby coming in, kind of playing that RB2 role. I kind of hope that we see him get more snaps in the next few games, but I think the Eagles are on an upward trend. I think that we very well are still contenders. I think that we very well are legit. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are definitely going to make a push to be repeat Super Bowl champions this year. Now I'd like to kind of end like the serious segment of the podcast with the Clemson Corner. The Clemson Corner is going to be my discussion on current Clemson sports and just, because I'm a student here. My whole life I've always been a Clemson football fan since my team Villanova lacked a real D1 football team. Obviously, they had FCS, but FBS football was always Clemson for me. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to have gone to some of the games. Despite this being the year that I wish it wasn't, I really wish it wasn't this year that I had to go here, but, Dabo Swinney, there's just a big parallel to Jack Leggett there. The Hall of Fame baseball coach, the guy who brought Clemson to the College World Series many, many times. He had a bad few years in the end of his tenure there, and Clemson made no hesitation to fire him, And it just began the same way with Swinney. It's really beginning with, frustrations with the athletic director, Graham Neff. There's just been disappointment coming from the athletic director when it comes to Swinney. And I think, honestly, I keep seeing, Clemson Insider said there's going to be major changes coming really soon to Clemson football. I don't know if firing Dabo is the right decision because I think, honestly, he did something really admirable in trying to not go after the transfers. He thought that his team was homegrown, just like his coaching staff. He had a spoil system coaching staff. He thinks that I can win with my guys. We did really good last year. I can run that roster back. It's going to be no problem. But I think he proves it to, guys like Nick Saban who retired, that just doing it without the transfer portal is not possible. And I really admire Dabo as someone who's been very anti-NIL. I like the prospect of college players getting paid. I just think the commercialization of it has gotten too far, and it's ruined the integrity of the game a little bit. But I admired Dabo trying to go around the transfer portal. And it's sad to see players decommit because they think that this is the future of Clemson football. But I think, honestly, it just wasn't just good decisions coming out of Clemson football from this offseason that I think that they're definitely going to change for next year. And I think that Neff firing Dabo would be a huge mistake. I think that his name just brings so much to this Clemson football program. Obviously, I think the coaching staff needs to improve a little bit, but just overall, you're just seeing underdevelopment all around the board. Obviously, Adam Randall transitioned to a running back. He's not doing his thing. You need to get a real running back there. The pass game has just been inconsistent. You had Vizina come in. He's playing better than Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik comes in against that Duke team, and just you cannot let Duke score that much. I think that Duke game was lost no matter the PI penalty. I think it was just like the Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl a few years back. That PI penalty was called. Yeah, it seems BS, but I think Clemson would have lost that game anyway. But, this is a team that supposedly has 3 top 10 NFL picks when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Cade Klubnik was supposed to be the Heisman, but this is a team that has, they're 20th in rush defense. That's fine. That's good. They're 62nd in total defense. You know what's bringing them down? They're 101st in pass defense. I mean, this secondary is just not playing consistent. And even, the edge rushers, they're fine. They're 20th in rush defense. That's okay. That's probably college football playoff level, but I think the thing about this Clemson football team is they're lacking that eliteness. They're lacking the eliteness that they had with Trevor Lawrence, they had with Deshaun Watson, and they just had in past years with guys like Jeremiah Trotter on my Eagles, and just this is a team that they're fine. They're just a fine team, but they're lacking that eliteness that they need to win the ACC, that they need to be in the CFP. And it's just a shame. It's really just a shame, especially if Dabo ends up getting fired in a very Jack Leggett type move. It would be just an absolute shame when it comes to all that. I think that Dabo should not be fired. I think that he held the biggest experiment in the new age of college football and the new age of college sports, but I think it reinforces why guys like Nick Saban retired, why revolutionaries of the game retired, and they don't like watching it anymore because it's just become too over-commercialized, and you shouldn't need transfer to win. You shouldn't need the transfer portal to win, but unfortunately, I think it's just unrealistic to win and go as far as you can without it. Now going back to college basketball talk, which started out the podcast, but you got to talk about Clemson basketball. They won 88-38 in Little John Coliseum against New Hampshire. Just an absolute blowout. You have Dylan Hunter, RJ Godfrey, the guys that are homegrown here. Obviously, Godfrey left Clemson, went to Georgia, had a little stint there, then came back, and a lot of transfer frenzy, just stuff I do not like. But, Dylan Hunter did fine, but I think the X factor for this Clemson team is going to be Nick Davidson coming out of Nevada. He had 10 points, 5 rebounds. That's a guy that you're going to see become a big star for them later on, especially as they make a tournament push. And I spoke before about how I'm a Villanova fan. I keep seeing Clemson and Villanova are basically at the same exact spot when it comes to, overall rankings, maybe the Bart Torvik rankings, Ken Palm, and you just see, very similar stories coming out of them. But I think the thing that's going to set Clemson over the edge this year, and I think honestly, this Clemson team, they might not be the best ranked team, and they're missing some guys, some guys left, some guys transferred. The whole team is different. Only one guy stayed from last year. But the thing to know about this Clemson basketball team is that they are deep. They had 12 guys play in that season opener. They had 11 guys play double digits. This is a team that, you don't see depth coming for Clemson basketball. You don't see depth coming out of Clemson basketball. This is a team that, we're actually going to see multiple guys play multiple roles. We're going to see the coaching staff try something a little differently for once. This is something that we think we needed against McNeese. When you have more guys, you have more depth in your team, you play less predictable basketball. And I think that's exactly what Clemson basketball needs. I think if they want to find that identity for themselves, they want to actually make a deep run this year. I had them going to Elite Eight last year, but things happened. Things happened, but I had them going to Elite Eight this last year. I think that they can actually make a deep run this year. We have to see how they play against actual competition, No offense to New Hampshire. They're not a Power 5 school. They're not like what we're going to see later on when Clemson goes into the ACC and they play conference schedule. But that's definitely going to be a conversation for later on when the college basketball season really begins to open up out of just these big programs playing the smaller programs for some money, for some exposure. But Clemson basketball is definitely going to be a team that I think everyone should watch out for. I think Dylan Hunter is going to improve as the days go on, and I think Ace Buckner, the redshirt freshman, 18 points in the debut, he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem for this Clemson basketball team. Now, going to a sport that I haven't talked about yet, let's talk about Clemson soccer. I'm going to be short with this. Clemson United, they promised us at the convocation that they would win 3 in 4 years. They lost in the first round of the ACC tournament, unfortunately, at Historic Riggs at home against number 13 Pitt, ACC tournament. Just an absolute travesty. I saw a Tiger article talking about Clemson can beat anyone. They could be the best team in the nation. But they keep beating themselves, and that's the thing. Pitt scored early on. Clemson couldn't find anything going on. They have Ransford, number 10, the small guy. He's just an absolute phenom. He's a National Player of the Year consideration. November 17th is going to be the selection show for the College Cup, and you want to see Clemson go back, and I think they will go back, but just to see their fate decided on November 17th instead of being an automatic bid is just a travesty because there's so many questions in the air. This has just been an up and down Clemson United season. Too many upsets at Historic Riggs, too many conversations to be had on if this is the team that can continue to compete in the next few years. Obviously, I think that they will win a championship in the next 4 years. Will they win 3? I'm not sure, but that's the bar that we're looking at, Clemson United. And I think that this loss was just an absolute disappointment. And, Clemson United has to get better, and they better hope that they get a selection show spot because obviously you want to see it for the Clemson fans, but this is just a soccer team that just has too much potential, too many major names in it, and just a great coach, a great coaching staff. Is a team that did good last year, has done good the past few years as four-year national champions. 2 of those were in the past few years. You just want to see this team succeed when they're at the top of their game. And I want to finish out this section of the Clemson Corner talking about baseball. So obviously, baseball is, they went 45-18 last year. They have 20 guys returning this year. Did not do well in the College World Series, but you got to talk about 2 prospects they just got. Henry Chubb Jones Jr. and Cole Cinnamon, both two-way guys, two-way players. They can pitch, they can play the infield. Henry Chubb Jones and Cinnamon are both 10 grades on perfect game, and I think that we're going to see those 2027 commits, massive commits, by the way, huge recruitments for this team. This is amazing for the future of Clemson baseball, and I think that we're going to see some success in the next few years. You hope that with 20 guys returning from last year that we're going to see some greatness bouncing off of last year's pretty good record. They were 45-18, but we're getting there. In Clemson baseball, we'll be back to that success, especially when those 2 guys suit up in 2027. A lot of excitement coming into that 2027 season, but we have some time coming up, and Clemson baseball always going to be electric. They played against the Savannah Bananas earlier in October, so we're going to be seeing a lot of good for the future of Clemson baseball. Now, shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about the final segment of the Pursuit Pod as I begin to do this more and more, and that'll be checking on my fantasy team. So me and my buddies back home, we have a fantasy league, and this is the first year that I'm doing one fantasy team because, I really want to hone in on this. I really want to focus all my time on this. And I'm stingy when it comes to fantasy football. I like to build my team, homegrow my team, get the same players every year. Not the best winning strategy, but first year I went 5-9. It was not good. I made a terrible trade with Stephon Diggs in that first 2 weeks, but made the chip the next year. This year we're riding on, I think it's like $300 for the winner, $20 for the second place. So I'm really hoping to get some money again. I'm really hoping to get my name on that trophy. My one buddy back home won 2 years in a row. He won against me the first year. That second year I had Christian McCaffrey, and anyone who had Christian McCaffrey that year was guaranteed in the championship, win or lose. But, this year, I just think there's something special in the air. We drafted with A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra, Kenneth Walker, Roma Dunze, Marvin Harrison Jr. That was a stacked team. We had Caleb Williams, obviously, and then on the bench we have Trevor Lawrence. All homegrown guys, but I will say that, we traded A.J. Brown, Marvin Harrison, and Kenneth Walker for Kyron and Justin Jefferson. I don't know if it's the most fair trade, but we did it. We did it regardless. I really think if amon-ra and Justin Jefferson can score at least 18, at least 19 each per game, that I'm guaranteed to win out. I think that that's a guarantee. I'm 3-5 right now. But we're definitely not out of it yet. Caleb Williams, absolutely went off in that game. He caught a touchdown. He got that last-minute touchdown to Loveland. 38.7 points is amazing for Caleb Williams. I talked about him earlier. I talked about how I'm always rooting for him. Travis Etienne, he's a guy that you'll see him score 10. You'll see him score 15 some days. He never really booms. He never really busts too bad, but 16.5, that's good. Kyron Williams coming into his own, one of the best fantasy running backs you can ask for. He'll receive the ball, in that amazing Rams offense. But big kicker is Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, first 3 receptions of that Lions game, each of them were 15-plus yards. That third one was a 40-yard touchdown. And I played my best buddy. I played my best friend back home, and he was absolutely livid because he started out 4-0 and he lost 5 in a row, and I was his 5th loss in a row. But I think the fact that this is just a well-rounded win, I think that my team is good. It has what it takes. We even have David Montgomery off the bench, Trey Tucker, Kenneth Gainwell. I think that the subs can be made, but nobody's going to be on bye anymore. I think that we have, the team for the future now. I think that we are absolutely stacked when it comes to, just purely on paper, this roster building. I think that I have the team to win it all. I'm 3-5. Now I'm 4-5, but I think this team can win it all. I think that I just need to be confident in my players. I think that I'm closing off my trades, but to everyone in the league that's watching, I think I'll win it all this year. I think I'll get this $300, and I'll buy us all a nice dinner. So that'll be it for the first edition of the Pursuit podcast. Thank you all for watching. I've been Calvin Lymper. Go Flyers, go Birds, go Sixers, go Tigers, and go Phils.